Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Shaina McAndrews of the Shaina McAndrews Team at eXp Realty. And today I am with a special guest who is one of my favorite people to call on when I need help. This is Greg DuPey with Pillar to Post. He is the leader for the DuPey team, and he's got some fantastic inspectors under him. And they have all helped my clients and even when we're just on showings. And Greg, you love those texts from me, I'm sure. What is this? What's going on? Have you seen
Absolutely,
this
it's the
before?
best. Yeah, yeah. What is this a problem?
Is this a problem? Should we
What
be should we be concerned?
yeah, what is
You
that?
can
Oh, it's
hear
a
my
water
high-pitched
heater.
voice in the text. But yeah, you've definitely answered some great questions on the spot for me when I'm at a showing and I'm like, is this a deal killer? Because if I've got a client who just maybe they don't have enough money to fix certain things, I need to know that before we're spending money on an earnest money deposit and everything else as a buyer. So you have helped immensely. Thank you so much for being generous with your time and energy. And I hope our clients find this very useful because I think when you're going into the process and you're buying a house, a lot of people don't know what a house is. And they think the inspection is going to look through the walls. We're going to, I don't know, rip out the bathtub and see what's underneath. So
Yeah, right?
I think it would be great to kind of have just the basic understanding of how a house is generally built, what components we're looking at. And when we're in that inspection process, knowing some of those limitations is very helpful too. But Greg, thank you for being here. And why don't you go ahead and get started on anatomy of a home?
All right, great. Thank you, Shayna. It's such a pleasure to work with you. And you always bring interesting things my way, which keeps life interesting. And I love it. You're a pleasure to work with, and I certainly appreciate it. And we love working with busy professional realtors. And I'll tell you what, you are definitely a professional, busy realtor, and that's
Thank
a
you,
joy to
Greg.
work with. So yeah, it's definitely a joy. So, well, thanks for having me on. I'm going to go through a short presentation here to talk about the anatomy of a home, which is something we don't always think of, but it's some things that are be like, some of them will be, oh, I didn't know that. But there's going to be other things that are like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Or, yeah, I knew that, but I never really recognized it. So there's a lot of different ahas that you can see in this. And man, if you pick up a few ahas that are interesting and bring something to life for you, then that's what it's all about. There we go. Here's my business card. You're welcome to take a scan of it. I'm not going to spend much time at this page, but that's my information. And you can go ahead and do a quick screenshot of that with your phone. This is basically all of the things and inspections and testing that we do. Our team covers all of Southeast Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and we do all these different inspections and testing. And on the bottom page, it shows all these P2P things. That's basically the technology that we bring. I won't go into any detail on that, but it's certainly leading and cutting edge technology in our industry. So we're going to talk about these four things and talk basic terms. So there's no code enforcement rules and regulations and all that good stuff. So I won't put that on the screen. These are more just elements of the home that are important, starting with the structure, which is the foundation, which is really important, all the way up the walls, the roof, the ceiling, plumbing, and all the stuff inside. So we're going to talk about each of those. Let's start with roofs. So, hey, you may not know, but there are different names for different roofs. And as you can see here, these are just a few of them, but some popular ones in our area. Although the A-frame isn't something we see very much driving down on the main line or in Montgomery County. But if you go up into the Poconos, you'll probably
They're
find an
everywhere in the
A-frame.
Poconos.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right? Come on,
Yeah, looking
that's
at these different styles, I've seen all of them in the greater Philadelphia area. Even the A-frame, I think there's one or two in like Bucks County that are close enough to consider
oh
being part
yeah,
of our area. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And there's nothing like an A-frame house. I love it.
I'm so adorable.
Yeah, yeah, they really are. But the gable is what we're usually used to, the box gable and then the gable roof. So there's a hip and valley. There's all sorts of versions of this. but it's good to know, hey, when you're walking down the street on your morning walk, you can look at a roof and go, "Yeah, that's a gambrel. I thought it was a barn roof," which is a good name for it too, but it's a gambrel roof, the one in the middle. So, yeah, pretty interesting. So I'm not gonna go through this video, it's fairly quick. It'll actually show up on our screen, so I'm not gonna go through this, but if you choose, I don't know if that there's a YouTube video out here that you can actually watch that, and maybe you can put it in the notes, Shayna. I'll send you the link for it. It's really fun to watch, and it's really fast, but it shows all of the elements of a home, so it's worth going through. We won't go through it today, but pretty interesting. So let's talk about, let's talk about the water. Let's start with, you've got water coming in that's clean, you got water going out that's wet and dirty and nasty and whatever. And we won't ever want to mix those up. Okay. So let's make sure everything's in the right place. And then we also have the potential, which is one of home buyers' biggest concerns sometimes are, am I going to have water in the house? Are there leaks? Is my tub going to hold water? Is it going to leak when I pull up the drain plug? Or do I need to go downstairs and see if it's dripping? All of those kinds of things are really, really on front of mind for folks, and they aren't front of mind until sometimes, well, there's a leak, and then all of a sudden it's a thing. These days, we're having really cold temperatures today. I think today is our actually the coldest day of the year so far. It might end up being that. So broken pipes are a real thing, whether they're pipes that are in a crawl space or in an attic. That can be a concern. One of the things with water in and water out is, what do I own? And that's a question as a homeowner that you really should know the answer to, because when trouble arises and trouble comes up, you want to know, is this the city's responsibility or is it mine? And most of the time, if it's the main sewer line or the main water line coming in, it's at the street where basically the main is, whether it's water or sewer, it's at the street that your responsibility begins. So starting coming off of the main lines from the street, that's your responsibility. And I've had a lot of people say, well, it's below the ground and it's going to the street. Isn't it the city's responsibility to dig up my yard and replace my sewer line? It's like, yeah, I'm really sorry to tell you that it's not. So it's really important to understand that those are my responsibility. And so in the case of a sewer lateral, and the lateral is basically the line that runs horizontally going out to the main line. That's why they call it lateral. And the biggest thing with the sewer lateral is that there can be blockages. There can be tree roots. There can be issues going on there, and replacing that is very expensive. The main thing you'll have with the water service lateral or the incoming water is that possibly it's older and it might have lead pipes. And you may be in a township that brings that to light, and you may be responsible for replacing those lead pipes that are coming into the house. So just keep in mind understanding what's yours and what's not. Inside
Just to go
plumbing,
back to that, Greg.
sure.
So the important thing here for our home buyers is knowing that that sewer line could be under a driveway. It could be under the sidewalk. And what does that mean when it comes to the repair? Those are expensive repairs. And so when we're doing our inspection, and part of the home inspection, we're going to recommend pretty often is doing that sewer scope to just check the line and see if it's going to need some work soon. Or maybe there are some root intrusions. Maybe it just needs to be flushed because it's been 100 years.
Yeah.
So when you guys do that sewer scope for our clients, I'll often ask them like, hey, is this going under the driveway? Is this going under the sidewalk? Can we tell where the line is? And it's also helpful because some of my clients love to party and they like to drive on the lawns and park cars. And I'm like, don't park your car on the lawn. You might have
Right.
some pipes under there.
Exactly.
um, yeah. So, and now thankfully there are like, Aqua runs a lot of the water and sewer lines in the area, or they have control. They're the ones we're paying the bills to, and they do have insurance for it. So Most insurance is around like $10 a month for water and sewer in the area, so you can be protected. But doing that sewer scope when you are purchasing the house will definitely alleviate some problems. And then you want to know, are you going to fix the driveway first? Because if you're going to have to dig this up and do a new sewer line, let's plan out our renovations in a smart way.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And to add to that is we inspect houses, we want to inspect the entire house. And that includes the inside of that sewer line. And we want to know the true condition of the home so that you know what you're getting.
Mhm.
And that's really important. So yeah, getting that sewer line scoped is a big deal. And it doesn't take more than a half hour or so, but having
Mhm.
it done. One of the things too, just to add, is when you have a sewer scope done, try to have a company who doesn't replace sewer lines doing the sewer
Yes.
scope. Number one, which we don't replace sewer lines. If you do have someone who replaces sewer lines do the sewer scope, make sure you get a video of that sewer line so that if they're calling problems in the line, you've got that video backup that says, "Oh, and here's a video, a visual of what that root intrusion looks like or what that broken pipe looks like." So, yeah, all really good points, Shayna. Really good to bring up.
That's a really great advice. And the other thing that you guys do about water when we're doing our inspection is you show our clients where that water shutoff is for the house. Because let's say there is a leak, let's stop having the water continue through whatever is happening.
Right.
And I would like all my clients to know where their water shutoff is because it'll come in handy in some point in the next 50 years to have that knowledge.
It is really important to know where that water shutoff is. And that's a big part of the home inspection is education. Especially for
Exactly.
first-time home buyers, but even for experienced buyers, it's good to know everything that's going on with that house and the maintenance things and where are my shutoffs, the gas shutoff, the water shutoff, et cetera, the electrical, just understanding that. So, yeah, that education is a big part of what we do. Our guys are, we're half teacher and half inspector really, which is pretty
Very true.
special. So moving into the house, when it comes to the, water in and water out. There's a couple of things. This is with water out. Where does the water go after it goes down the sink? So as you can see on the sink there, you're going to see the U-shaped thing underneath. That's called a trap. And it's really important not just to catch your ring after you flush it down the sink, which is effective, but that's not the real reason for that. The real reason for that U-shaped thing, it actually holds water and it keeps sewer gases from backing up into the house. So that's the purpose of that U-shaped trap, we call them, underneath. The other important thing is you can see over to the right, there's a vent stack. And that vent stack, think of opening a can of soda or yes, and a can of soda, and this is going back way back in history before there were pop tops. You had to actually take the little pointed instrument and poke a hole in the top of the can. Well, if you poked one hole and turned it upside down, nothing's going to come out or very little. If you poke a second hole, everything's going to come out. And the whole idea there is you're displacing what is leaving the can with air coming in the other hole. Really key. So the same thing stands true with the plumbing in your house. As that water is leaving your house, it needs to be displaced out of those pipes. So say for instance, when you run your sink and you're draining your sink, if your tub is making glug 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 sounds, then you're short on ventilation of that system. Something is clogging it, something is causing a problem because that is not right. There should be some form of ventilation going. It's possible that, as silly as this is, a bird's nest got built in the vent. We've seen that happen
Usually with
before.
my hair, and it's the
Yeah,
shower drain.
It could be shower drain. It could be that too. It could be a clogged drain. It
Uh-huh.
could be a clogged vent area, but whatever the case, something's clogging that up. Or it could be a room addition that someone put on with a bathroom in it and they didn't tie the plumbing into a vent properly. And that I've seen many times. And I actually own a house that had that. And we had to add ventilation to that plumbing. It wasn't rocket science, but it's plumbing science. So there you go. It's really simple science and super simple physics. So during a home inspection, we're going to be listening for those glug, glug, glugs to make sure that we don't hear any. And if we do, we'll want to have that checked out further and just make sure that they're there. We're also going to look underneath each of the sinks and tubs and all that to make sure we've got um, U-shaped clean out or excuse me trap to handle that. So a little bit of simple science there, but if you hear that glug glug glug, you might want to call a plumber and have them check it out. Yeah, definitely, definitely something we find.
It's
So
a common maintenance item in my household, Greg. You don't
yeah,
have long, thick hair without clogging a few drains.
oh boy, yeah, you do have some long hair.
I
Speaking of
know,
sewer
and
scopes, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, yeah, sewer scopes too. I mean, I feel bad for all the plumbing for us women. They should
Oh,
just make it more hair
totally
friendly
right.
these days.
Yeah, that's why I keep my hair very short. Yeah, I'm just
That's
kidding.
why, yes.
Yeah, that's why. Oh, wait, there's more than that. Yeah.
There's more.
Uh, plus, I'm not going to be that old, long-haired, gray-haired guy. I just end of story. Stop there. So, so yeah, during sewer scopes, we find a lot of hair. We find a lot of roots. We find, and roots are funny. Not in the sewer line, by the way, but roots are interesting in a funny way where roots are looking for water. They're under the ground, they're searching for water. If there's even the tiniest little opening in that sewer line, which can be just at a where two pipes join together, that root is going to find its way in there to get a drink of water. Well, it's going to continue to go inside that pipe. And what happens when trees grow? Well, the roots grow too. And so while it's getting that drink of water, it's growing. And all of a sudden, that little quarter-inch wide root that made its way into the line becomes a big fat root and it's breaking the pipe up and filling the line with roots. And we've seen clogged sewer lines that are just nothing but roots that are causing it. So they need to be cleaned out. It's not the end of the world and you don't need to dig up the yard. You might want to remove some trees, especially in a mature area where there's a lot of old trees plugged in over the plumbing. You may want to have to remove a tree or two just to keep that root growth to a minimum. But at as a maintenance thing, if you do have a lot of roots around or trees around in your yard over the line, just having that checked every few years, probably 5 years or so, and then they can come in with a mechanical device or with a powered jet, water jet that will actually clean that out. I just had it done in my house. I'm in an old house with trees, and we had a backup. Thankfully, it wasn't too icky, and it was a little icky, but not horrible, and we didn't lose any furniture or anything. And we had it checked out and the roots it's been 10 years and I hadn't had it scoped. I own a company that has 3 sewer scope machines. So, yeah, right? I mean, but so our guy came out and we scoped it and sure enough there were some roots and some stuff catching on those roots. So, we went ahead and had it jetted and it cost about 800 bucks and it sure felt better than spending 20,000 on, replacing the line because it does go underneath the
Absolutely.
driveway.
Something that I've been asked about that is from some of our clients when they do the jetting, is the potential that that process can crack the pipe or make it worse?
No, no,
Okay.
especially the jetting. Now, the mechanical version could have some dangerous effects, and we actually did a mechanical one on my house as an example. One of our inspectors, Sharif, is a former plumber, and he came over to scope the line for me, and we saw the roots. We went to Home Depot and got a mechanical roto-rooter machine, which I know that's not the proper name, but and we used it and didn't it didn't cut it. literally didn't cut it. So we ended up having a drain company come in and do the jetting, but there was no damage as a result of it. And unless you've got super fragile, old, like 150-year-old pipes, you're going to be fine. And the jetting is actually, think of a water pick, toothpick thing that's got the high powered jetting. That's what it's like. It's basically just a really super high power pressure washer that runs down through that pipe and will clean those roots out. And it did a beautiful job, spick and span.
That's
Happy to not
fantastic.
have
I'm
a.
glad it worked for you.
It worked great. I was so relieved that it wasn't a $20,000 bill. So it could have been.
Definitely.
And our insurance, we do have the insurance, but it only covers a certain amount. There's a pretty low ceiling on that. So yeah, it wouldn't have worked very well. So those sewer scopes are a big deal, and we're happy that people are doing them. I'm not sure how many folks will have to deal with this, but a very brief kind of study on septic systems. Septic systems are very similar to city water or city sewage systems. The water goes out of your house, it goes through a treatment system, and it gets put back into the earth, which is what happens when in the city when all that water goes down the drain. It's getting filtered and treated and put back into the earth. Well, on an on-site septic system, the exact same thing happens. It just gets put into a tank. The water, not the solids, but the water make their way into this leach field down here, and that water leaches down into the ground and goes back into groundwater. Now, it's not going to go into the well that you have on the property. That well is going to be on the other side of the property. So take a breath there.
Hopefully.
It
We
better
have some
be.
old properties, so we check for that, though, during our inspection, right?
We want to check for that. We want to make sure that well is on one side. Church and state are not coming together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we want to keep them separated. But yeah, it is something to where it's basically just like city water. It's filtering through the earth, which the earth is the ultimate filter for anything. If you want to filter stuff, you filter it through the dirt. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's the best filter in the world. So that's basically a septic system. We do we don't do septic inspections, but we refer some companies to do those. But if you ever had any questions about a septic system or septic report or anything, I'm available. I do know how to read septic, so to speak, and I've been teaching these classes, specialty classes on septic systems for a long time, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So,
But as
but
you
don't
said, we don't have too many of them. The largest septic inspection that we did together, because you guys were doing the home inspection, the person you referred was there doing the septic part. And there were three different septic systems,
oh
holding tanks
yeah,
on this property in none other than Chestnut Hill. So it's crazy where you find these, but that property was gorgeous. It was 5 acres backed up to the Wissahickon. And yeah, three massive septic holding tanks. It was a very old system, over 100 years old, and it's just very different. But these systems are a little more modern, and we don't deal with them too much, especially in surrounding counties. Not until you're at least like 40 minutes out away from the city,
exactly. Yeah, you
highway
get 40
driving.
minutes up past the turnpike, 30 minutes up past the
Mhm.
turnpike, and get in the country when you're not in a township, and you're going to run into these. So,
Yeah.
um, but don't fear a septic system. If you're
No,
looking at a house and it has septic, don't run the other way. Take a
it's
deep
nice.
breath, and it's fine. It'll
Save
be
on
okay.
sewer, save on that public
Yeah,
sewer bill every
exactly.
month.
And you just have to, if you just maintain it, have somebody scheduled to come out and pump it every year or two, whatever the township recommends. It's pretty straightforward. So,
Yeah.
yeah, don't fear a septic system. So moving on. Let's get back to our there we go. Wells are a similar situation. This is on the other side of that house, by the way, but wells are again, nothing to be afraid of. You just wanna make sure a couple of things. One is that the well, can be certified that it's working fine. So you can have a well test company, well inspection company come and test the well. We don't test wells. We do not do inspections on wells. It's a pretty specialized thing. A lot of times people don't get a well inspection, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. If They know that the well is less than maybe 15 or 20 years old, and we check the water pressure in the house. For instance, we'll go into the primary bedroom, we'll turn on our bathroom, we'll turn on both sinks, we'll turn on the shower, and we'll flush the toilet and see what the water pressure does. If that water pressure doesn't drop significantly any more than city water, you're probably fine. But if for peace of mind you want to have a well inspection, you can. The other important thing, and really probably more important than that inspection or as important, is having that water tested. We do all manner of testing.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna be not only drinking this water, which is coming in contact with it, but the biggest organ you have is your skin, and you're standing under it and bathing in it all the time. So you wanna make sure that that water doesn't have any impurities in there that are harmful. We do every water test you can imagine, and we can collect samples, and within a week, 10 days at the most, if you have some extensive testing, we can tell you what's in that water, and we can also recommend on, ways to fix that. Everything's fixable, by the way, in most cases, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the water here in Southeast Pennsylvania these days that you definitely wanna have that water tested, so, don't pass that up. It's
Yeah,
an
if you have a
important
well
one.
system, always do the water test.
Yep,
There's
exactly.
no it yeah, there's no question on that. It needs to be done.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and they're not expensive. A basic coliform bacteria test is a couple $100. There are more expensive batteries of tests that go up to four and $500, and it's entirely up to you which ones you do. One of the most recent ones we've been doing are PFAS testing, which is the forever chemicals that have made their way into some groundwater, and we've been we've been doing those a lot. Those are expensive tests because the testing fees from the labs are outrageous. However, they're worth it, because it's
Absolutely worth it.
you definitely wanna check
And
that out.
and we'll tell you usually on the showing, it's something that we bring up, "Hey, this is in an area that has had some issues with it. You
Yeah,
should do the test."
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. We wanna make sure you're healthy. So let's move on to the electrical side. Service, meters, all these different things. On the outside of the house, if you have above ground service, which means there are power poles and there are power lines coming into your house, the power lines are going to come into some kind of a service mast. That's part of our inspection, making sure that that's all in place and in good shape. That wire is going to go down into the meter down below and then eventually make its way into the house and go into the panel. Um, Basically, a couple of questions people ask is, does my house have enough power? Well, we can't really tell from the outside looking in, although we can usually tell by the wire that's going into the house or by the panel how much service there is in the house, whether it's 200 amp, 150 amps, even 100 amps. And in some houses, people are like, well, is 100 amps enough? And after evaluating and taking a look at it, we're not going to do any kind of scientific evaluation. But if it's a gas house with the furnace and the appliances running on gas, and the only thing electric going on there is the outlets and maybe a few other small electronics, 100 amps is fine. Now, if it's a 4,000 square foot house that runs on electricity only with a heat pump and all sorts of different things, oh, yeah, you're gonna need 200, and most likely, they're gonna have 200 amp services coming in, 400 amps coming into the house, and that's typical too, we've seen that as well. I think the biggest we've seen ever is 3 200 amp breakers in it's 12,000 foot house, so square foot house. There's that.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a small city.
It
But,
is.
but we inspect those too. If anybody wants to buy a 12,000 square foot house. Way. So yeah, so electrical services, those are the biggest questions we get. We just want to make sure that from the point that that's, oh, by the way, who owns what? So you own the service all the way out to the pole. Okay. So all the way out to where it hooks into the main service line, you own it. So say for instance, I do want to upgrade from 100 amps to 200 amps. If you do, you're going to need to, they're going to want to replace all of the power lines at the top going from from the pole all the way into the house and then into ultimately into a new panel, electrical panels. Replacing that is not an expensive thing. So only do it if you really think you need the power. Don't do it because my neighbor has 200 amps. That's a silly reason to have that. Power envy is not a thing you want to engage in. Expensive. So unless you're into that, so there you go. Your breaker, here's a picture of the inside of of an electrical panel. And as you can see inside here are things called breakers. They are basically individual outlets where the power comes in from the main and then it goes out to the outlets and the lights. And each one of those represents a circuit. And each circuit makes its way through part of the house. And that's why they call them circuit breakers. So if, for instance, you unplug the vacuum cleaner and you're standing 12 feet away from it when you unplug it, who hasn't done that? And then you go over and grab the plug and plug it into a different room, and that vacuum cleaner is still running, it could trip a breaker because you've got a fast load going on to that system because, well, the vacuum cleaner is drawing some power. Well, it could trip a breaker. So if you lose your power, go down to the electrical panel and you can see which one is broken. By the way, it's not broken. You just have to flip it and reset it. We'll show you that at the inspection. We won't trip any breakers, by the way, because we're not allowed to do that because people don't like it when you turn their stuff off and on in the house. But we will show you how to reset those and how to also turn off the main power, which is up here. And I don't know if you can see it close enough, but that's a 200 amp breaker right there, and that's the main power coming into the house. This is the neutral line, and that's the hot line, the power line. So that's what's coming in. There are fuses also, so old school. In that old house down in Chestnut Hill may have had some fuses going on. I don't think I have pictures of those, but they're very old school. If there are houses,
They're so rare now. Yeah.
they're rare. But here's the thing: if they're working and they're above board and okay, they're fine. They're really fine. They're totally excellent. It's just people are a little freaked out by screwing in a fuse because they think they might get electrocuted. And it could be dangerous, but for the most part, it's no more dangerous than resetting a breaker. But definitely can explain those when we run into those. Here's an example of wires coming construction or newer construction, wires coming into a whole bay of switches in a room. As you can see, this is all coming in. They're all marked, which is beautiful that the electrician marked where everything was going, and really, really nicely done. This guy is. So that's what's going on behind the wall. We just want to make sure that everything's working properly. We also look for junction boxes. So when some of these wires further up the line come together, they have to connect inside that circuit and go somewhere else. And that's where junction boxes come into play. And as long as they're installed properly by the electrician, sometimes Harry the homeowner wants to install his own junction boxes, which can be problematic. And the biggest thing is Harry doesn't put a cover on it. And see that screw right there? That's what's going to hold down the cover, and you want to have a cover on that. We call those out in home inspections as a defect, and it's a 39-cent fix, okay? It's that much money. So you just put a cover on that outlet box or junction box, and you're good to go. We find them typically in basements and attics for the most part. Here's a couple of things, outlets and switches. Um, and a couple of things about those is the switch is not so much to talk about, pretty straightforward. Outlets are different. So that outlet that you're seeing on the bottom here is a grounded outlet. That means this little round, or excuse me, half dome guy right here, I like to call it the outlet's mouth, is the ground. That's where the ground. So if you see a three-prong outlet, that third prong, that rounded prong, that's the ground. Grounded is not, if you have an ungrounded outlet, for instance, if you're in an older home or the ground isn't hooked up properly, it's not a hazard for a human being unless you're a cyborg. And let me explain. If you're a cyborg, you have circuitry in you. So that's a problem. So any appliance, TV, computer, anything that you have plugged in that has a circuitry in it, that's going to be at risk if there's a lightning strike or if there's a power surge. So either of those are going to cause problems with that television. So if you're in an old house and you have two prong outlets where you're missing this oval right here, this ground, don't use an adapter. That's not going to help to plug in your TV. It's still not grounded. So when you have that lightning strike or power arc, it could fry your television set. If you have it grounded, it won't. Grounding old outlets is pretty simple. The only time when it's not simple is if you're in a house with knob and tube wiring. That's a whole different discussion, probably longer than we want to take here, but that's something worth talking about if you're going to buy a house that was built between 1880, 1890, and 1925 or so, 1930. So that's a thing. Oh, wait, I was wondering, I couldn't remember if I
Is this
had
from
this
my
slide. Huh?
house?
Yeah, is that, yeah, right?
It looks like it's from the property I bought last year. Um,
No. Yeah,
yeah, all knob
knob
and
and
tube,
tube.
but I knew going in and, I'm rewiring it and, ran some new wires just a couple weeks ago throughout
All
the
right.
house. So,
All right.
yeah, but you don't wanna buy it if, you don't have the money to fix it and the seller's not going to.
Excellent. Well, that's about all you need to say about that, Shayna.
That's
I
my
love it.
advice.
Yeah, that's your
You
advice.
either got the money to fix it or the seller does. Don't
And
buy it otherwise.
the funny thing is knob and tube wiring in and of itself back in the day, and even today, if it's never been messed with, it's fine. It actually
It
works
is.
fine, but it doesn't have a ground, number one, so you can't have televisions and computers in your house. Okay, because it's not grounded and it can't be grounded. So that's the downside. But if you want to be a recluse and not have any electronics, then you might be okay. But the other part of it is if there it has been messed with, and as you can see, there's a modern junction box right here on the left side of the picture. That means it's been messed with. And
Mm.
whenever you mix the old and the new, then it causes the opportunity for a hazard. And that's why we say that active knob and tube is problematic. The other side of it is insurance companies are becoming more and more
Yes.
aware of houses with knob and tube. And if they suspect that there's knob and tube wiring in the house and they can prove it, you can't get insurance.
Not only that, Greg, there was a house a couple years ago in the neighborhood I grew up in that burnt down from, and it was declared by the fire marshal that it was from the knob and tube, and the insurance company didn't cover any of it. And
Oh
so
my
they were out
gosh.
$600,000 on a new bill on building it because they just it was very unfortunate. So that's why I say, yeah, you're either changing it, the seller's changing it, or we're not buying that house.
Well
There's
put.
just there's a right buyer for it. Like I told you, I bought one last year, but my plan was to rewire.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
once it's rewired, a good point, to do is, the electrician who rewires it can say, "There, I rewired it, it's all gone." Okay.
all gonna
Have a certified electrical, inspection company, a code inspection company, come in and certify it and get that piece of paper that says, "This house is certified knob and tube free." That way you can show that to the next buyer that's going to buy your house eventually and prove that it was taken out. We've seen houses that they said they removed the knob and tube, but we found ungrounded outlets in places that there shouldn't be ungrounded outlets. They should have
yeah.
been grounded. And it
And
makes
even
us
when they
wonder.
say that they've removed it, oftentimes we're still having an inspection report come up and it's saying, "Hey, the attic light and the
Yeah.
porch light still have it." It's very
Yeah.
common.
Yeah. It's happened.
Yeah.
So just a thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Jumping off of electrical, let's jump into the heating and air conditioning. Did you Did you know that on the coldest day of the year, which I think is today, is the highest chance of your heating system taking a break? Yeah.
Isn't that just wonderful? I know my HVAC guys are running around like crazy right
Oh
now,
my gosh.
fixing everything.
I'm knocking on wood. I mean, we've got a really nice combi system that Sharif put in, by the way, in our house that heats the hot water heating system and also our hot water. so I think it'll be fine, but and the reason they die on the coldest day of the year, or the air conditioner dies on the hottest day of the year isn't because it's bad luck. It's because they're working so hard. And if there's going to be a flaw in there, that's when it's going to show up, when it's working at maximum capacity. So that's why those things happen. As an overall statement, get a contract with an HVAC company you trust to have them come out every year and your system out, tweak it, clean it up, make sure it's in good working order, and you're going to be high on their list when it does break. So you won't be waiting 3 days for them when it's 20 degrees outside.
Exactly. And also just maintaining your systems in general, it really does add a good life expectancy onto it and helps avoid it crashing.
Right on, exactly.
Mhm.
So a bunch of different versions of heating types, and as a real estate agent, but also as a home buyer and homeowner, it's good to know what's heating my house. And it's pretty easy once you get to know what these are. Forced air furnace is a heating system that is heating the air down in the furnace and it's shooting it up through vents in the house. Water radiators and baseboard are usually run by a boiler or a combi unit, which is a combination boiler and hot water heater or water heater, which is what I have. It's a very small box on the wall that heats the water and gives us hot water at the tap. But whatever the case, you're heating that water, running it through the house, and you've got this radiant heat that's happening, either through radiators, baseboards, or sometimes radiant heat, which is really nice. And then you've got heat pumps. They're electric. They're run by electric only, and they're super efficient. The only downside is that on a night like last night, when I think we got down to 8 degrees, it's not going to be able to keep your house warm. There is a way for it to keep your house warm, but you have to use emergency heat, which is actually a heating system that's kind of expensive to run, but it works and it'll keep your house warm. And then there's baseboard electric heat, which is pretty uncommon, but we see it once in a while. Paired with this, then, if you think of two sides, well, what powers what? You've got natural gas, fuel oil, all these different ways of powering these devices that are going to heat your house. And even wood, even other stuff. There's some crazy heaters out there that'll work on all of these that are hooked up
I've
to
seen
all of
coal
these.
systems.
They're what's that?
I've seen coal systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll work. I mean, coal is still there's a combination system out there that you can dump whatever you want in that burn chamber, and it'll burn it, and it'll create heat in your house, including gas and oil. It's crazy. Here's a nice little chart that I love to share because what goes with what? So on the left side, you've got each of the opportunities for fuel, so to speak, electric being fuel. I didn't put coal in here, but that would be there too, I guess. And then on the top, you've got each of the different ways of heating your house. So each of those go with each one. It's pretty straightforward, but I like it. I think it's a good way to kind of visualize, hey, what's going on in my house and what do I have? So if you've got baseboard heat, you can pretty much be assured that that's running on some kind of a fuel, whether it's fuel oil or natural gas. But if you've got a heat pump, you're guaranteed it's running on electricity and so on. A nice way to understand kind of what you got for heating in your house. Back to my screen here. So basically on the forced air system, you're heating, like I mentioned, you're heating the air down in the heater itself in the furnace. You've got the exhaust exiting out of the house, and then you've got this way of these ductwork making that air up into the house. So pretty straightforward system. If you've got them, if you've had them, you're pretty familiar with them. Here's a heating system. It's conventional, which means that this is where the air is going out, or excuse me, the exhaust is coming out of the system. That's hot air. So that's pretty typical in an older system, although they still install these today, but that's going up a chimney. All of the exhaust is going up a chimney. There's also high efficiency units. So if you've got a couple of plastic pipes sticking out of the side of your house somewhere, you know that you've got a high efficiency furnace. because and the reason the plastic pipes are okay is the high efficiency unit uses up all of the heat in the exhaust to the point where the exhaust is only about 80 or 90 degrees, sometimes 100 degrees at the most, and you don't need to send it up a chimney, which is fantastic because now you can cut that chimney off and you don't have to worry about replacing the chimney. Now it's just plastic pipes. So it's pretty cool, pretty easy. So if you got those pipes on the side of your house, you can rest assured you've got a high efficiency furnace. And where there's a high efficiency furnace, there's probably a high efficiency water heater either there now or it'll be there soon when your water heater dies. So that's kind of nice. This is a boiler, takes up a lot of space, about the same as a furnace, I guess, but not as much as my combi unit. But it works, they work great. This is a brand new one, looks relatively new. When we inspect these, we just wanna make sure that everything is not corroded and there's not pipes that are compromised, so pretty straightforward there. But yeah, that's the boiler system. And then this is baseboard water heat. So if you've got these running around, your house, basically, that's where the water's gonna go through the pipes around on the baseboard and it's going to radiate heat out into the room. This is electric heat. Same thing, baseboard, but it's electric. Sometimes people get these confused that that's water heat. It is not, especially when there's a temperature control on each unit. Sometimes each room has its own control as well. This can be a super inefficient way of heating a house. However, if you've got rooms that you never use, you can just turn them off and close the door. And it's actually a little bit more efficient and can be actually as efficient as any other system. So if you're looking at a house that has baseboard electric heat and you got rooms you're not going to use all the time, not a bad idea. They work fine. So all of the air conditioning types are listed here, ton of different versions. I'll quickly flip through each one from kind of top to bottom. There's the basic conventional system, which is a split system. You've got an air conditioner on the outside, a furnace on the inside that also acts as a air handler for the refrigeration unit, and that's where you're gonna have cold air coming out of the same ducts that you get hot air. So pretty straightforward there. This is a mini split system. So if you've got baseboard or electric, or excuse me, water heat, radiant water heat, you may not be able to have an air conditioning system that works like this, that's in conjunction with your furnace, you won't be able to. So you'll need some kind of an air conditioning system. These are fantastic. Same thing as the a baseboard electric heat. If you have one of these in each room, you can cool each room to your desires. And as in our house, which is what we have these throughout the house. And at night in the summertime, we turn all of them off and we don't cool the rest of the house. We get our bedroom down to about 83 or 53 degrees because we like to sleep cold and we can have it as cold as we want down there. And the rest of the house isn't trying to stay cool. So it's really super efficient for cooling systems. It's fantastic for AC systems. There's mini split or high velocity systems. These are an option too that are a standalone AC system that you can put in to augment your baseboard or radiator heating, and they work great as well. And I think the only thing I didn't cover here, which I think I added later, are water heaters. So I don't have a picture of a water heater here, but y'all know what it looks like. Water heaters are pretty straightforward little devices. They heat water up so you can have a hot bath or a hot shower. And the great thing is that they're keeping a nice supply, whether it's 50, 60, 80 gallons of water hot for you at any moment. The downside is they're keeping 80 gallons of water hot for you at any moment, even when you've left town for a month. Instant hot water heat is the next generation. Personally, I'm in love with that system. I think they're fantastic, and so if you upgrading or changing, you can do that. Water heaters generally last about 10 to 12 years, and, uh, and when you get to about that 10th or 11th year, you should think about replacing it before it starts leaking. Just wanna say that's always a good idea, right?
Always
So
a good
that's
idea.
I think yeah, that's the
Now,
end
can
of
I ask you some questions that we typically get
Sure.
from our clients? Okay. I think that the number one misconception that our clients have when we're going through the buyer consultation with them is they think that the inspection is pass fail.
Yes, I hear that a lot.
Yes.
And we have people ask us, "Did our house pass? Did our house fail?" And so it's a pretty simple explanation. We are not code inspectors. In fact, code is not a word that we're allowed to use verbally or in our writing in our inspections. Codes are electrical, plumbing codes, building codes are sometimes national, but usually local. And each one is different in each community or each township. And so we don't quote codes. We don't inspect a code. We inspect for health and safety and making sure that the house is safe and healthy. Now, a lot of times that goes in conjunction with code, but we're not saying this is not code. We're saying this is not safe. And so that's kind of the difference. So there's no fail system for safety. It's a matter of personal judgment, although we take it to the American Society of Home Inspectors level of what that judgment is. This isn't safe. Having an outlet above your kitchen sink that is not GFCI protected is not safe. So it's a clear cut kind of a thing. There are a few things that are pass fail during an inspection. A couple of them are the septic system. It can fail. It can fail only because it's a $300 baffle or because the system is totally toast and needs to be replaced and it's tons of money. The other one is asbestos. Asbestos, if it's tested and it contains any amount of asbestos, it's a fail. So there's a few pass fail, but the home inspection, no, it's not a pass fail system.
Yeah. And just to clarify and piggyback on that, if you get your inspection report back, it's up to you if you want to continue. And typically, your agent or whoever on my team is working with you will go through this with your particular contract. But if you have that election for the home inspection, we have our time period to conduct the inspection. And sometimes we need to bring someone out for a second opinion, right? Perhaps during the inspection, they call for, hey, you should really have a plumber come take a look at this who has a bit more in-depth experience dealing with this situation and get a quote to fix it. Because that'll help us in our negotiations if we do on your contract have negotiation period with the seller to go through any of these items that are pretty big and to be called out. Most of the time we talk to our clients, we're not nitpicking the home inspection report. A lot of it can be very small items. I remember, Greg, you mentioned just doing the cover on a junction box. It's 39-cent piece at Home Depot, Lowe's. That's not going to be like, hey, we need you to do this. But we're really looking for things that could potentially be harder for you as the homeowner because you don't want to inherit the big problem. But we do want to curb any kind of liability issues, etc., in our negotiations. So it's not pass fail in that sense at all. It's, hey, what are you going to handle? What can be delayed to be handled? And what should you expect as the homeowner over the next couple of years that may need to be replaced? Maybe the roof is like, hey, you probably got like 5 years. And one of the better things that you guys do compared to your competition in the inspection world, and I always say, like, if you're going to hire a home inspector, make sure they walk the roof. Because I'm reading when I'm on the listing side and I read these people's inspection reports with their reply, and I'm like, how does this guy know? He used a drone. He
Right.
did the drone walk it? Like, who walked this roof? I'm like, the roof is fine. We've actually had people walk it when my investor was renovating, and it was fine. There was no reason for it to be replaced. It has 10 years left. So it's just fascinating. Who you hire matters. And I will give you guys big props on that because you have helped countless clients go through and have a very educated experience on what they're purchasing so they feel confident moving forward, but also to help us feel confident working on that negotiation for the inspection report and anything that we're working on. Because it's like, no, we didn't just use a drone. The guy, he walked it. The guy
Right.
walked it.
Yeah.
So um, we know that the plywood is shot underneath. Like it needs the new sheet. It needs all this. So And the other thing that we get asked, Greg, a lot is what does the inspector what what will they never know when they're doing their inspection report, when they're doing that inspection?
Things that we can't and we don't have X-ray vision, we can't see behind the walls. A lot of people think that we can, which we appreciate the confidence, but we can't see behind walls. We do use infrared cameras on our inspections so we can see where there might be water intrusion or there might be a hot spot in the electrical system, which is super valuable, but we
Mhm.
can't see behind walls. So termite damage is a good example. We get calls occasionally, not very often, but hey, we tore down the wall between the call goes like this. We tore down the wall between the garage and the living room and we found termite damage. You should have seen that. Well, we look for termite damage all everywhere and we know what to look for. And I've seen some things where my guys, golly, they found termites in this wall. And it's like I had to look at this wall at every angle. I didn't have a flashlight with me when I was in the house. And, and there were these tiny little bubbles behind the paint. But I found that the inspector was using a trick where he shines a light and lays the flashlight right up against the wall and goes up and down it because this house, he suspected termites somewhere and he found them. And so it was fantastic. So we can't see behind walls, I think is the biggest thing. We can't see inside that main sewer line. So get that scoped, then we can. But that's basically the biggest thing. I mean, we can't see up the chimney. We do not do level 2 chimney inspections, which are video inspections of chimneys. But those are the things that, you know, we've got to make sure everybody understands we don't have X-ray vision.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is too that comment on that is if you think of us as a general practitioner, a really good general practitioner, but general practitioner as a doctor, we're not a cardiologist. Okay, we're not an orthopedic. We're GPs. So we're going to refer you at some point possibly to that specialist, whether it's going to be a structural engineer, whether it's going to be a plumber. We're going to refer you and say, you ought to have this checked out by that person for these reasons, because we just aren't that expert in every category.
Mhm. Yeah. And just a couple other things just to kind of finish this conversation up. When the client is with us at the home inspection, first of all, I'm there. I'm always there with the client. Just because sometimes they don't know what they should be asking. And I'm your advocate and I like to be there and present and make sure we all are on the same page and understanding what we're seeing, and what certain things mean to them as the future homeowner.
Uh-huh.
We're always there. And the inspection is something that they are electing. The home's owner, they don't need an inspection and they probably don't want one, right? They don't
Right.
care probably, but like they probably don't want one if they have an option. And so it's for the home buyer to pay for if they want it. And it is not refundable by the home seller or by anyone if they decide to choose to
Uh-huh.
leave the contract from it. So I think that's always important to note to our clients. And then if they want, they have different add-ons that they can do. And a common one would be a mold inspection, but we
Uh-huh.
usually recommend home wood and radon. We didn't really talk about radon today, but it is the second leading cause of lung cancer. And so it's important that we do a radon inspection. And it's just this black box that they leave in the house and it gets monitored for 48 hours. And it lets us know if it's going to be below or above 4.0.
That's
If it's above, we need a radon mitigation system. Right, Greg? Is
right.
that the lowdown on radon?
You said it all. You got that down,
Yeah.
man. Wow. That's exactly right.
Um,
I can't add anything to that.
yeah. So we typically recommend home wood and radon, and we often say get the sewer scope added on. And sometimes if there's certain things, elements about the house, I'm like, hey, do that mold test. Or if someone has severe allergies and they get flared up easily by their environment, might as well do the mold test. It's a little hard, especially when the seller has a dog, because sometimes those molds will show up because of the pet. Um,
Right.
uh, but and then I think that's pretty much it though, that the majority of what tests we're doing right now, right?
Yeah, home radon, termite sewer scope, and then the rest of the items come usually at the inspection, where if we see friable asbestos, broken up asbestos, whether it's flooring or insulation, we can send a sample into the lab to have it tested. If we see visible mold or we suspect mold in the air and the clients are really sensitive to mold, we can take air samples of the air and send those in to the lab. Those are the two things that are really, the most common, but those aren't really ever ordered ahead of time. They're more on site. Yeah, let's go ahead and get that tested, kind of a thing, and we can always
Yeah.
add that on site. So
Yeah, perfect.
yeah,
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for your time today. And I hope this is helpful to our current clients, our future clients. And again, reach out to me. We will send you Greg's information as well. And thank you so much for being here today. Thanks, Greg.
thanks, Shane. I appreciate you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.